Um, this is what I was trying to avoid, because once we get started, I don't want to be coming back here to admit people. Okay, so welcome back. I think we have done quite a lot on this Expedia project, and I'm here to show us. I want to believe that the corrections that I made were able to work for you. I think I had mentioned in the videos there was some corrections, and also I put them as part of the comments. So when you follow the previous video about how to save a user and the privileges, those things should have worked out. So today I want to switch gears and log into the system so that now we can be able to see how we can authenticate our users without using plugins. I just want us to do raw user validation and see how that works out, because this is a very important aspect as far as security is concerned. So what I will focus on is how to log in the users. Then, of course, if time allows, we'll look at how to validate the privileges. But I think how to create the users is going to take quite a bit of time. So probably maybe during our next class, we can discuss how to validate the privileges before we look at how we can create our menu and things like that. Then you can be able to follow up with the other activities as we move along. So if I open our SQL log, you can use any tool, as I said. I just prefer SQL because it's simpler as far as according to me. We have our Expedia database, should be somewhere here. Was it with EX? I think it was starting with an EX, which is here. So this is our database. We have our users here. So if you look at this users table, um, yeah, I think we have a few sets of data, but I think we didn't create this on our own. So probably maybe I can remove this data so we create our own set. So I have this users database here. No, actually, I think we did this. Yeah, actually, I think we did the user, we did the user saving. So probably, yeah, we did the user saving. So probably the login is where we're supposed to now handle it. So under login, I think we provided. No, we didn't provide this because in the username. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to create a stored procedure that is going to get me the user based on the user name. So I'll right click this and I'll say SP. By the way, sorry, I think I've not shared my screen and you guys are not mentioning. So I'll share my screen. Can you be able to see my screen? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just go back to code. So as I was saying, we had already created how to create a user. Now I want us to log in that particular user with the usernames and password. So I made a mistake and deleted the user that was there. So probably I just create another one. So for here, I'll simply come here and say get user by username, like that. So it's going to be simple. The only thing I'm going to do is to provide the username over here, username, which is going to be variable character. This is the only thing that I'm going to provide to get the user. Of course, the other things I'm going to validate with PHP, like the password, the salt, and all that. So here, the another thing I'm going to do is just to say, get me all the fields, select all the fields from the users table, where the user ID, username rather, is equals to the username that has been provided. That's all. So I'll run that. that should be able to get for me the user. Now I made a mistake and removed all our users, so probably maybe I'll just add a new one. So I think it was local host Expedia users manager. I can add here, let's say, a test user, which is test user, and the password is 123456. Password is 123456. They don't change password and login, they're not admin, so I'll put their mobile and email, and also give them privileges over here. I think we need to put a button here that can select all of these privileges for us, so I'll save that. So the user was saved successfully, as you can be able to see over here. So if I go to my database, I should be able to see that user. So the user has actually been created successfully. You can see that is the salt. That's the password, the part of the password that was generated. That is now the actual password. So it is this salt plus the 123456 that the user provides. So now we have a complete password. This makes it very, very difficult for somebody to break, because even if you are to use a password generator, it will be very, very difficult for it to generate this password plus the one that the user has provided. So this one is what makes it a bit difficult. And then the other good thing is that the administrator only has part of the password. The other part of the password is with the user. So even if you're trying to decrypt this, you are not going to be able to reverse engineer this to be able to get this password plus what the user has. That's the beauty of sorting the passwords. But now let's just check if it can be able to get us the user. So sorry. So when I come here and I say this, I can open a new script here and I say call this third procedure. Then I will give it the user to get. In this particular case, is test user. Ideally, I'm supposed to get the results. So yes, I get the result, and it means that query is working fine. So we just need to go back to our PHP application and see how we can implement this. So I'll come back to my code here. I'll come to my models. I'll come to my users. Then here, I can say login user. So this is why we're doing object-oriented PHP. So function login user. So when you're saying login user, I only need the username. The rest I can be able to do by myself. So what I'll do is I'll set up an SQL query here and I'll say call. Then I'll paste the query. I'll paste the stored procedure over there. I'll remove the data type. Then because this is a text, I will enclose it in single quotes. Then the curly braces like that. That makes it a variable. So after that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say here return this get data, because we're already using this function SQL. So it is actually, let's just say user details, or actually RST. You can simply say record set is equals to, but sometimes you prefer to use a useful variable, so you can say user details. User details will be that. Then you fetch the data that comes from there. So that should be able to get you the user's detail as an array inside this user's detail over here. So the other thing you need to do is, first of all, is to check if actually you need to check if the user exists first of all. So before this, before you fetch that, you simply need to say here if um, user details with row count row count. So you're counting the rows that have been returned is greater than 0. Then you will do this. Otherwise, the user does not exist. So status, you just say invalid. Message is invalid username or password. You don't tell somebody the username does not exist, so you just tell them invalid username or password. So I'm not going to tell you what is wrong. I'm just going to tell you there's a problem with either username or your password. Then here again, I'll come. If the user actually exists, Then we'll check their password, and this is where it comes in very handy. So checking their password, we'll simply check if uh, user details, then the field password. Now you need to remember how we actually generated the password. So what we did is we took the salt and the password, then we encrypted it using SHA-256. So if I come to, I think, these user operations over here, and you check where we were saving the user, where is the password? Yeah. So you can see we hashed it with SHA-256 and we combined the password and the salt. We need to do the exact same thing the other side. Okay. So we're going to say here the hashed password is actually a hash. This hash uses the SHA-256 algorithm, and I am combining the password that the user has provided with the password that comes from the database. Not password rather, but salt that comes from the database. Okay, then sorry about that. That's not what I expected. Yeah, of course, once that is successful, I will return that. Of course, before I return that, sorry, I have to create a session here to tell them that something is amiss here. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's okay. So before I return, I need to set up a session. Slack is it's underscore other session user ID, so that every time I'm checking who is logged in, I'll just use that session. So this will be user details variable get me the user ID field. If I wanted to know their name, I can simply put here session, then I'll put username will be I think instead of saying username, I'll simply say first name. Just list their first names, their names, first name and last name, like that. So that should be able to give me who has logged in. Now, if the password was incorrect, I can come back here and say, then invalid again, invalid username or password. So the only thing that I'm going to do is only when the username and password is successful, then I will create sessions and I'll return the success values. Otherwise, I'll just tell you username or password is incorrect. Now you can do other validations, like for example, you want to check if the account is disabled. Like you check the status, you can tell them the account is disabled. They can contact the system administrator. You might also want to check maybe things like if they need to change their password when they're logging in, then probably redirect them and things like that. But what's important for me right now is just for us to be able to see how we can validate the user. So we have added a new function inside our users class, and we have called it login user. We're only giving it username. So from the database, we are getting SQL, we're getting the user whose username has been provided. Then we're checking if there's any row that is returned. If no row is returned, we simply tell them invalid username or password. If there are rows that are returned, we simply go ahead and check if the password is okay. If the password is okay, we also tell them that the login is successful. Otherwise, we tell them that it is invalid username or password. And that should be able to allow us to see how we can log in this user just by utilizing the features that we had mentioned last time. So I'll pick this method and I'll call it inside user operations here. So if you want to log in a user, you'll pass if is set, then I'll say login user. So if I say login user, so I'll need a username. Don't worry, Emmett is trying to fix what I do. So if I say if is set, this should have been post. You can see sometimes it doesn't do a very good job. If you set posts, login user, then do these other things. So get me the username that has been provided, get me the password, then my response will be I'm calling this login user and I'm returning back the response. So whatever the response is going to be, that's basically what the user gets. So we can test it on Postman first of all to see if it is working. So usually it's a good idea when you're getting started, you can test it the entire way. So first, as you can see, I tried it out with the database tool just to check that it's able to fetch for me the data that I wanted. Then now I've written it inside a Postman and I'm trying to see how that works out. So I'll just basically close these ones. I don't need them for now. These collections, I don't need them. So so this is going to be a post, and I'm going to put my URL. So this is localhost. So this is localhost. Then this is I think is Expedia, which is the name of our folder. Let me just get it from here. It's Expedia. Expedia. Then from Expedia, we have controllers. Then from controllers, we have user operations. .php. Then this is where we are sending all our values. We're going to pass them as body and as form, and we say here login user will be true. Then also need to specify username, which I can put a random value, maybe test. Then there's a password, which is 123, something of the sort. I know, of course, this one will tell me invalid username or password if everything is fine. So when I run that, you can see it tells me invalid username or password. So which means that the API endpoint is actually working perfectly. So we can try a real user, and we can put it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think. So that should be the correct one. It should be telling me login successful. So PDF statement as an array, line number 53. Okay, let's see what we have done wrong. So we can come back to this. So if the row count is greater than 1, then what we could have said here is user details, then fetch. So I didn't fetch at this point. I needed to fetch because here I only got the data, which returns an array. Then from here, I'm now converting the array. Now, actually, this returns a string. So from here, I'm converting the string into an array, which is now what we can be able to use this for. So we can be able to access those array elements from here. So that's a mistake that I had made. Let's try that again. Send. Undefined variable password. So password, let me see. So when we are logging in, we didn't pass the password, so we need to pass in the password. So let's also confirm that on operation, we have specified the password, so that's actually okay. Let's try it again. Run. Now you can see login is successful. The user ID is 3. So we have successfully logged in the user. So it means our endpoint is now working. The only thing we need to do is to go ahead and now create the user interface, then utilize that particular endpoint that you've just created. So you can see all these things as you're going to be doing them all along. The procedure is going to be more or less the same. Create your table, create your stored procedures, create your object, now create your controller. Then from your controller, the API endpoints available from which you can be able to just query and be able to get the results. The most important is for you to convert those elements or those returned results into JSON to make it very, very easy for you to consume them at the end. Now, JSON is important because it is the standard data exchange format at the moment in most applications. So you can convert them into XML, you can convert them into JSON, you can convert them into SOAP, but I prefer you use JSON because that's the de facto standard for exchanging data across multiple applications. So again, even if you do an Android application, you don't need to do the login um, uh, uh, logic. It's already done. Simply call that endpoint from your Android app, give it the variables it requires. It will be able to give you the values that you need. And if that is okay, then you can be able to proceed on with what you need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside um, my my views over here, and I'll create a new file and I'll call it login. Actually, let me call it index because that's where we start. Index dot, you can call it HTML, by the way, or you can call it PHP because you're hosting it in PHP. So whichever is comfortable for you, you can use that. So index.html, index.php, either would still work out. So I'll do here Emmet, and I'll tell them this is login. Of course, I will include some files here, like for example Bootstrap, so that my formatting becomes easier. So I'll say link CSS, and inside this CSS, I think we had a folder called CSS, and inside that CSS, I think we had bootstrap, bootstrap.css. I'll just confirm that inside CSS we have bootstrap. Actually, it's bootstrap.min.css, bootstrap.min.css. So that's the CSS file. Then let me put a comment here. Add bootstrap. I think we've added it before, but just again for memory. Then now we're also going to add font awesome. Awesome. For icons. Then I said you must not use font awesome. You can use other libraries like Bootstrap also has its own icon library, and many others that are available. So you're not restricted to using font awesome, but I like font awesome anyway. So I'm going to CSS here. Then I'll say all.css. All.css is for font awesome there. So I think that's okay. Then Bootstrap also has its own JavaScript library, which I think I need to add at the bottom here. So I'll simply come and say script. It should have a source script with a source. So this one is going to go inside JavaScript. Then it will pick for me bootstrap dot minimize dot css. Now before bootstrap, I think I also need jQuery because bootstrap requires jQuery. At least version 4 requires jQuery. Version 5 and above don't require jQuery, but version 4 requires jQuery, which I also have there. It's jQuery 3.7.1. So jQuery 3.7.1.js. So yeah, I think with that now I'm ready to create my my page. So my body. So here inside the body, I can create a card. Then actually it's a container, which is a card. Then the card has a header, which I want to put H5. This is Emmet. Then inside H5, I'll put some text that says, please log in. So that should give me that. So, well, I think I made a mistake. It should be card, then card header. It's card, then card header, like that. So that's Emmet. You should be able to put, okay, that's not also appropriate. This should have been card.card header. So that's just a shortcut of writing it. You can actually write it in long format, but when you write that, it outputs this. I was expecting to create a div called a card, another div called card header. I had h5 with that particular text. Then now I can put a card body here. So from the card body is where I can now put my form. So again, I'll simply just use input group. Then answer the input group. I have two things. I have a label which says this should be username. Then I'll provide username. I'm just going to make the form simple just to demonstrate how it works. Then I'll put an input of type text here with an ID of username. Then I'll give it form control, then form control, the smaller version. So the name, same username. So I'm just creating HTML elements for capturing username and password. So that's for capturing username. This one is for capturing password. So that input group label will be password. Then I'll provide password here. So again here, I'll simply put an input of type password. Then I'll give it an ID also of password. Then I'll give it classes like form control and form control same. So again, that one still be password. Usually, I prefer the name and the ID to be the same. So the type is password, but the other type is text. Remember when you're discussing HTML, we said when you have inputs, we have inputs of different types. So this is a classic example for it right there. Then of course after that, you can have a button for login here. So I can have a button here with an ID of login user. Then it has a class of button, then also a small button. Then the button should also be green in color, so I'll put success. Then I can put text on it and say login, something like that. So you can see when using Emmet, it's much easier to type this code and move along. So what I'm going to do is to come back to my screen over here and just remove this users manager, because the other one is index, it should be able to show directly. So you can't be able to see it's showing directly, although it is looking very bad. So what I can do here is I could create a div here that says container fluid. Then I move inside container fluid here. But then you can customize the bootstrap. If it does not do what you want, you can go ahead and customize it. It's okay. So this should be form group, not input group. This one should be form groups, not input groups. Form groups. These are forms. Form. Yeah, I think that was my mistake. Also, let me check. Now that looks much better. So maybe I can center the entire form itself. So this particular card, I can say, mm, um, um, since it's not a div, I can say imagine top 4. Okay, I think that should work. Yes, you can see that is not bad, but of course, for the header, I've pushed it in a bit, but that's okay. Actually, this button is too small. I can make it bigger, so I can remove the small class to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think that's better. So I'm not going to belabor on how to make this form beautiful and all that kind of stuff. The whole point is how to be able to log in successfully. All right. So I've created the user interface for logging in. So now the other thing that's left is for me to actually log in. Now the other thing I left out is actually notification. I need to put notifications here, so I can say notifications. So every time there is a problem, I'll simply display the notifications over there. Now, yeah, so I think that is okay. So what I can do now is to create another file that now is the JavaScript file that is going to enable me to react to this. Remember, I don't want to put everything in one place. I want JavaScript separated from HTML, from PHP, from SQL. That's why I've done everything at the appropriate level. That's how this kind of thing would work out. Or professionally, this is how you do it best. So I'll come here and I'll create a new file and I'll call it index.js. Then I'll make sure that this index.js, I include it as part of this file over here. So script, then I'll say JS, then index.js. So you can see I'm not just taking JavaScript and I'm typing it inside here, I'm typing it on a different file. So because you're using jQuery, I also say jQuery, listen to when the document is ready. This is common. Then run the following function. I'm going to use an arrow function this time. So this arrow function here is going to be run once jQuery loads everything. So which means once the page loads everything it needs to load, it loads Photoshop, it loads Bootstrap, and it loads everything it needs. Then that's when it's going to start executing the code over here. Sometimes when you want to test if it's working, just say console.log and say index page loaded. As you can see, it already knows what I'm trying to do. So if I come here and I come to inspect, then I come to console, then I refresh this form and I come back to console, I should be able to see it's not defined. So it means that it's not finding jQuery. So JS jQuery 3.7.1.js. So did I misspell it? Let me just go and check. So when I come to these, and that's why sometimes it's good to check if it's working. jQuery 3.7.1.js. So if I come to JS, this is jQuery 3.71. There's no dot inside here, so I misspelled it. So you can see that one would make it not run. Again, I'll reload it. Now it's not seeing Bootstrap. It's not seeing Bootstrap, so the CSS for the Bootstrap is not being seen. So again, let's see how that works out. So for CSS, it's bootstrap.min.css. So I'll just come upstairs, boot CSS, bootstrap.min. Yeah, that looks okay. Yeah, that looks okay. Let me just copy the name. No, sorry, that's not it. This is it. Rename, pick the whole name, copy it. Then I'll place it here. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. But it has applied the styling. So why is that an issue? Because I'm seeing the styling is actually applied. The styling is actually applied, so I don't know why it's picking an issue with this. Oh, JS, Bootstrap to Windows CSS. The JavaScript part. This one is the wrong one. The one below is the one that's wrong. It is bootstrap.min.js. That's the wrong one. Again, you don't want to see errors here. So console is not defined. So this is the index line number 2. Console should be lowercase c. JavaScript is case sensitive, so that's a problem. So run it. Usually I'm just supposed to see that no errors at all. So that's what I expected to see. You can see there are absolutely no errors. Ideally, when you're writing your code, you want to make sure that there are no errors. But even though it's working sometimes, just make sure that you don't have errors over here. So jQuery is actually working. So let's now go ahead and do our actual login. So remember, we said last time when we are working with DOM elements, we want to store them in variables so that accessing them becomes easy. So we don't jump in and out of the DOM every other time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define my variables here. So define DOM elements that we're going to use. So first of all, it's going to be username field. Username field. I'll say you can use jQuery. So jQuery, we said it uses the regular CSS syntax. So we have username. Don't worry about the AI is trying to figure out how I write code, but sometimes it doesn't get right. So I have password field. which in this case will be password. For now, it has guessed it correctly, but I'll just type it anyway. Sorry. Then I have login button, which in this particular case will be element with ID. I don't know what we gave it, but we didn't give it an ID, so we need to give it an ID, and we call it login button, like that. So again, well, I can close these ones, we don't need them. Then I'll have my notifications. The notifications just going to be, I think I just call it notifications. Those are all the elements I need to access from the DOM. So the only other thing is I need to add an event listener to when somebody clicks on the login button, then we can check if they provided the username and the. So I'll come here and I'll say login button. When you click on it, so dot on click, or you can add an event listener, then I'm going to run this function. This time let me look for a function expression like that. Now I'm trying to combine both function expression and arrow function. I need to stick to one. Yeah, that's okay. So when that login button has been clicked into, then we need to extract the username and the password. So I can simply say here, username will be the username field. Then I'll extract its value. Then I can remove any leading or trailing spaces. So somebody might type username with a space by mistake. Now when it comes to password, password should be typed as it is. So I'll say password field dot value. As simple as that. So for password, I don't need to trim. So it has to be exact. So if somebody puts fake spaces, it means that space is part of the password. Then the other thing I'm going to do is to check for blank fields. Check for blank fields. So here I can declare a variable called errors, which will store for me all the errors that I can get. So here I'll say if username, is blank. So what will happen if username is blank? I'll simply load the error. I'll simply say errors is equals please provide username. Username, like that. Then of course I'm going to set focus on the username field so that they know what to do. So I'll say focus here. Next, I'm going to check if the password is provided. If also check if password is equals to blank, then provide password like that. So those two should check for me if username and password is correct. So what it will mean is that errors would not be blank if either of this condition is true. So I'll simply come here and say and check if errors is not equal to blank, or rather if errors is blank. If errors is blank, it means that no error occurred, right? So otherwise it means that if error is not blank, that's okay. Otherwise, it means that some error occurred. If error is not blank, some error occurred. Now, if some error occurred, I'll simply take this notification and I will pop out notifications. So I'll simply say notifications. This AI filter is okay. So I'll create an alert which is red in color, and I'll tell you the error. So what I'm simply doing is I'm getting a div with a class of alert with alert danger. Alert danger means it's going to be red in color. Otherwise, if you want it to be blue in color, you put info. That's bootstrap. Then display the error, which will be either be this or this. And then of course, the focus will go back to where it's supposed to be. So we can try that out and see if it works out. So we run this and we try to do that. We try to click on login and that doesn't seem to be working out. So let's try again. F5. Click login. It means that is not it means the field is not working. So what I'm going to do is login button. So I can come here and simply say console.log login button clicked, something like that, just to test if it is working, because that's how you troubleshoot. So when I click on login button, you can see it's not showing login button as clicked. So what is the issue? Two things could be happening. We know that the file is loaded, so we know that this ID is what might be wrong. So I can copy this ID, I come back to my index, come to the login button, and I paste it there. It looked okay, and login button, let me say Control F, it only appears once, so that is okay. It means that nothing else has that ID. So did we add the click event nicely on click? Yeah, it's on click, which is okay. So let's try that again and see. If I click on it, nothing happens. Let me come back to that. That's actually console. That's strange. That's strange. That's strange. That's strange. Let me see. Login button. Login button. Okay. Yeah, this looks okay. So login button. Login button. This ID with that is actually good. Why isn't it working then? Hmm. Uh, index.js. We have index.js is here. Hmm. This actually looks okay. Why isn't it working? That actually looks okay. Let me check my login button. Let me just add that, see if it's. Oh, I have seen. So there are two IDs. There's an ID here called login user, and there's another ID here called login button. So the ID, I'll remove this login button so that I remain with login user. Then I can come here and put login user. Yeah, mistakes happen, so that wasn't working. So try that again. Refresh, click. Now you can see it tells me provide username and also it tells me login button click. So ideally that is working. That is working, so I can remove this console. So if I don't provide either, it will tell me to provide. So again, when somebody says typing these values, this message should automatically go away. So what I'll do here is I'll declare input fields, an input field, that's input. Then when an input field is changing, so field, input fields, when there's an input, then run the following function. I'll use an arrow function this time around. Just mix and match so that we are able to see the difference. So the notifications will be blank, and that's it. So every time there's a change in a login in an input field, the notification should automatically clear. Let's try that out and see. So if I say username is blank and then I type my name here is test, you can see it automatically goes away. If I say login, it tells me provide a password. If I type a password, it goes away. Right? So that's very important for user feedback. Okay. Now we know that if you don't provide username and password, it won't work. But what if you provided username and password? So the first thing we need to do is to tell the person we are processing their request. So here I'll simply put in a div. Sometimes it doesn't do what I want it to do with a class of alert. And this alert should be info. Well, you can use danger here to differentiate the two. Then you tell them processing, please wait. So first of all, whenever you provide username and password, then we'll simply try to tell the user we are processing the request. Then of course, we'll now go to the server, and on the server, we can do the following. We can pass two variables. There are actually three variables. One is the URL that we are accessing. So we are going to access controllers because we are inside index. So we're going to jump inside controllers, then use operations as it is suggesting there. Then, of course, we're going to pass an array of what we want to do. So first of all, will be login user will be set to true. We're going to mimic what we have on Postman here. So we have login user, username, and password. So again, I'll just say login user, username, and password. And remember last time I said if the variables are going to be the same as the username on the other side, I just need to put one. So putting username is the same as putting username, full colon, username. So this is the field name that you're passing over to the server, which is this. Then this other one is the variable which you're reading, which is this variable over here. So if they're the same, you don't need to put the full colon, then repeat it. JavaScript, when you leave it open like that, it will assume that position that we are dealing. Now, the other thing you need to do is you could pass here. Once it's successful, you could just come here and get the data directly. That is a nicer way of doing it. That's an easier way of doing it. But then the only problem is that this arrangement will not tell you if there is a problem. Okay, because you see, actually this is not. Yeah, actually this is a post, so this is correct. This should still be correct, but I would have needed to check if this data is JSON or not. Well, we can actually use this because since it's a post, I mean, why not? So here, I think we had written a function called check is JSON. So we only need, because this is post, when data comes back, it's going to come back as text. We need to check if that text looks like JSON so that we know that there was no error. Otherwise, if the text does not look like JSON, then it definitely means there was an error. So I'll simply say if is JSON. I think I wrote JSON. Let me just check inside our functions. Did we write is JSON? Yeah, it's JSON is there. I don't know why it's not picking it up. Oh, it's because we didn't include functions inside our file. That's very important. You need, before you include our script, include functions, because that functions is where we're going to write all our housekeeping functions. So functions.js. So usually should convert is JSON. You can see now it's JSON. Yeah, that's what I kind of expected it to do. So if it is JSON, then I'll just take the data and pass it as JSON. That is equals to JSON.pass data, like that. Then of course I'm going to check if it's successful. Otherwise, if the data was not JSON, it means that there was an error. So if there was an error, I would simply pick this and paste it here. And I'll say, sorry, an error occurred. Then I'll give me the error, which in this case will be represented with the data that we have over here. So that error will be represented by the data that is coming from the server. So that should be able to tell us there was an error, if there is any error, and what the error was all about. If there was no error, we'll simply say if data.status was success, So if it was success, yeah, I can give notification that I'm redirecting, or I can just create redirect directly here, going to main.php. I can redirect here, so redirect to dashboard. So let's just create a dashboard file here, new, not models, but inside the views folder. So create a new file and call it dashboard.php. It won't have much, just say dashboard. And this dashboard of ours, for now, we'll just say welcome to Expedia. If you see welcome to Expedia, it means successful, something like that. Welcome to Expedia. Welcome to Expedia, like that. So once I see welcome to Expedia, it means that login was okay. So here what I'm going to do is, if it is successful, I'm just going to simply say that Windows.location would be dashboard.php, like that. So it will redirect to that. Otherwise, there are two other scenarios I need to check if it is invalid. So otherwise, I'll check if my data.status is equals to invalid. I think that's what we gave it. And that I'll tell you invalid username or password in that particular case. So if everything is okay, I should be able to redirect you to the main page. If things are not okay, I should be able to tell you an invalid username or password. So that's basically it. And I think that should summarize how these this user validation field kind of like works out. Let's see if it actually works or if there are any errors. But I can confirm this other status on users here. Uh, it was um, it was actually invalid. Status is actually invalid. So that's okay. So status is either success or invalid. So that's totally awesome. So let's go ahead and check if this now works out. So I'll refresh by pressing Control F5. I'm seeing it's telling me Expedia JS functions.js does not exist. There's a file called function.js which I think should have existed. It's saying it doesn't see it. It is function, not function. So again, I misspelled that. So it should be function.js. Again, as I've mentioned, you always want to make sure that you don't have errors here. You always want to make sure you don't have errors here. So it means that everything of yours is totally okay. If you have any errors, make sure you deal with them. So I'll try to log in. It'll tell me provide username, and I'll say test. Then I'll say login. Tell me to provide password. I also say test. Of course, I'm expecting it to tell me invalid username or password because I don't have such a user. So I'll run that. It tells me invalid username or password. And of course, when I open my console network over here and I say login, it's going to run this. This is how you test it. It's going to run this and it's going to give you a response here. So you can see that's the response that is coming from there, which was similar to what was we had said that the password was wrong. So that is the exact kind of response that you're seeing. This one can't be successful. This is totally wrong. That can't be successful because the password is wrong. I was expecting the password to tell me invalid password. So I think we need to go back and see because it's only checking for the username. It's not checking for the password. So let's just go back and check again under users here. So we are saying if password is equals to should be double. That's some problem. Now that's assignment. If you put one, it's assignment. Two is um, 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 uh, comparison. So you need to be very careful when you're working with JavaScript and most of the current programming languages. Simple equal to sign means assignment, which means I'll be assigning user details to that. So of course there'll always be the same value. That's why it was logging in. So if I come back here again and I run it, now you can see the password is invalid. But if I removed these two, I think now the password should be now the login is successful. So you can see though. So even people like me who are used to doing this every other time would definitely make mistakes. So I'll try again. Invalid username or password. I'll say test user with a valid password 12345 6. Actually, let me put 78. But invalid password that is still invalid. And as you can see, it said briefly at the back processing. Then it you can see it turns green briefly. Then it's done. Of course, if you're doing this on a network, it will definitely be much slower. So you'll probably see the processing for maybe a second or two. So again, I'll put the correct password 12345 6, and I log in. And if everything is okay and I'm redirected to Expedia, it means that the login was successful. All right. So that is how we do validation. We verify our users. And it's very important for us to understand that exact same process that I have gone through. It's important because usually that's how you check. And as I've mentioned, there's a part of the password that is stored in the system or in the database. There's a part of the password that comes from the user, and we combine the two of them. Then we hash them using SHA-256. Then we get the password. So in short, what you're saying is you cannot reverse engineer the password because this portion will always be unavailable and only be valid or be used by the user. So in case where you don't have that portion, then this will definitely not work out. Any question up to that point? I will take questions. So you can type on the chat, or you can unmute your microphone. Okay, so I'm not seeing any microphone on, I'm not seeing any hands raised, and I'm not seeing any questions on the chat. So it means that everything is perfectly okay. So I think I'll just carry on. So from there, I think that the next other thing was to just be able now to um, um, how do we call it? Now go ahead and create our Expedia um, uh, uh, main page, which now we can be able to integrate with all the other pieces that we have created. Is that so? Okay, so I would also like you to practice on this. I'd also like to practice on this. So what do we do? Yeah, I think we can. Our next class is tomorrow, right? Class rep, do we have when do we have our next class? You guys are not talking, or you're typing on the chat.
On Wednesday at 11.
Wednesday at 11. Yeah, because I want you to understand. I wanted you to go through this and understand how this works out. Because moving forward, I'll not be explaining how the objects are working, how the controllers are working, and probably maybe even how we are capturing the data from our user interface. I'll expect that you have done it and you're able to do it end to end. So I'm only going to focus on how to build that that landing page on Expedia. Of course, as you log in as admin, then how you can be able to add a few things here and there. Then you'll have the visitors page where now they can be able to use the information that you supplied in the database in order to be able to do their bookings and stuff like that. So I will share this code with you. I will also share this video. Go through it thoroughly. Make sure that you are able to almost replicate or you understand what we have done end to end so that now in our successive classes we are not going to go back into explaining the basic principles. We're just going to be going ahead and building whatever we want to build, assuming that all the principles are actually in place. Is that okay? Now there are two classes that are going. Sometimes I might go ahead in one class, sometimes I might stay in another class and that kind of a thing. So you'll just bear with me. If I am ahead in another class and share the video with you, just look at it because sometimes it's very difficult for me to repeat the exact same thing over and over again, considering that the recording had been done. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let you try this out and please make sure that you have actually done this and you've seen how it's working and you understand how it's working. If it's not working, just leave a comment in the video that I'll share. I'll be looking at the comments and I'll address them to you as they come along. As you can see, this is not very difficult stuff, but it's also not very easy if you just watch me do it. You also have to try and see how it actually works out. Type the code and see how it works out. That way it becomes much easier to understand and see where I'm coming from. You might even change a few things here and there depending on maybe how I'm doing things. You might not want to store these things as session variables. You might want to store them as JSON web tokens. That's also okay. So as what my point is, you need to try and do it and see how or what works out. Then you see what is the best practice. But trust me, I am giving you some of the best practices that you can be able to use to achieve your projects. So I think I'll take a break at that. I will share this code on the GitHub repo. I think you have the repo itself, so you can just scroll it on your end. You'll have all the code with the entire database and everything else. Then from there, you see how it works out. When anything doesn't work, you can post on the video as a comment, so I'll be able to deal with them as you encounter them. We don't have a uh, a Slack, or what do we call this? There is this platform that we're using for support. I've forgotten its name. I'll give you the name. But nonetheless, still you can use my email, or you can post the comment or question on the video. Then I'll be able to see how I can be able to assist you. So with that, I think let's take a break. You I'll for the remaining, um, I think 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so. You can use it to look at what we have done and make sure you understand. In case of any questions, as I've said, just reach out to me and I'll be able to tell you where the issue is coming from. As you can see, even for me, I had a few issues here and there when I was typing my code. I was also making mistakes. So I'm expecting the same from you. And the only way to get around this is to actually try it out and see where you're making mistakes so that you can be able to correct them and see how everything works out. Okay. So with that, I think we'll take a break. Thank you, and let's meet on Wednesday at 11 a.m.